It's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Life in the Movies podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This week, Jacob and I are going to be taking a look and reacting to the top 10 highest grossing movies that premiered on respective Thanksgiving weekends, since the holiday is going to be is approaching us in just about 2 weeks, or not even that, but it is getting really close, and it's scary to me, but that's how time works, I guess. And we will also be talking about Daredevil Season 2, Episode 6, a much better episode than last week. But before we get into any of that, I got to introduce my co-host, Jacob Martin. Jacob, how you doing?
I'm doing good, my friend. It's always a pleasure being on your podcast, and I'm excited for another exciting episode. Especially excited for the Daredevil talk because there's more exciting stuff to talk about this week, like you've already alluded.
Well, you just got back from out of town. How did that go?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm dealing with some life stuff that's going to be some really big changes coming to my life in the next year. I'll reveal more at a later date, but it was a safe trip, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen next.
And I can't wait to hear more about it. But should get out in front of this and saying that Jacob and I do plan on talking about Black Panther Wakanda Forever on the podcast. I've seen it, but Jacob hasn't because he's been out of town. But I have a spoiler-free and a spoiler-filled review, with my spoiler-filled review starring Cody from the Brock Upside. So there is more than enough Black Panther talk on this channel to satiate everyone until we can get to it on another episode. But
Yeah, I hope to see Black Panther this weekend.
I hope it hasn't been spoiled for you because it's really good.
Hey, I've been staying off Twitter to be on the safe side this week.
That's a smart idea. Well, let's get into a couple of things we've been watching lately. So why don't you start things off?
Let's see. I didn't watch much this past week since I was out of town, but I did catch. And I talked about this on our animation preview last week. But on TV in our hotel room, I caught the Polar Express and I watched it. You know how I feel on that one. I love that one. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies. I'm already in the Christmas mood just for rewatching that movie. It's one of my absolute favorites. But other movies I've checked out, actually the past couple weeks, I've actually revisited the live action Scooby Doo movies. I found them on Netflix, and so I decided to watch them just for fun. And what's crazy to me is James Gunn wrote the screenplay for both of the live action Scooby Doo movies, which is just hard to believe considering, when you think James Gunn, you think of, Guardians of the Galaxy, the Suicide Squad, the new head of DC Studios. But starting off, he wrote the screenplay for the live action Scooby Doo movies. Now, I can't say these are great movies by any means. The CGI, especially on Scooby Doo, has aged terribly in both movies. The humor is very hit and miss. Like, you see some James Gunn humor sprinkled in there, and the James Gunn humor is great. But the juvenile humor that you expect in a lot of these like 2000s live action family films is all there, and I'm not a big fan of it personally. But I gotta give these movies credit where credit is due. Both movies have great cast. I mean, you got Sarah Michelle Gellar as Daphne, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Fred, Matthew Lillard as Shaggy, and you got Linda Cardellini as Velma. Everybody played their roles well, and I associate these actors with these characters because they do such an incredible job, especially Matthew Lillard as Shaggy. He got the Shaggy voice down pat, along with the personality. I think of the two movies, I liked Scooby Doo 2 a little bit more. That one I think had a more creative premise where you see like real life versions of the monsters that the gang previously took on when they weren't them. This time them not being the people in masks. I like that a lot more than the premise of the first movie. Although I feel like the first movie had the better twist, the twist on who was actually behind what was going on in that movie. Whereas the twist in two, I felt like was obvious from the get go, and that kind of hurt my enjoyment of the movie. But they were fun little revisits. They're flawed for sure, but they were a staple of my childhood, and I liked revisiting them, especially for the cast and just seeing where James Gunn got his start. That's the trippiest part.
Yeah, James Gunn had a long career before Guardians of the Galaxy. He wrote the screenplay for Dawn of the Dead, directed by Zack Snyder, which I've not seen, but I've heard good things. He wrote and directed a little movie called Slither, which I've heard nothing but good things about, but I will see one of these days. So it's one of those things where James Gunn, like he was a breakout overnight success, for lack of a better word. That it was like, yeah, he's known for Guardians, but he was doing things long before then. And so I love this. I love those Scooby Doo movies. Like I said, I was just at the right age, at the right place, at the right time to watch them because I was really young when they came out, and they just really just spoke to me. In the first movie, the villain is Rowan Atkinson, and I am not going to lie. I would not have made that choice, but I admire the bravery of Raja Gosnell and James Gunn to pick that. Like that was a choice, but it was a fun choice.
And then, not to mention what was actually inside of Rowan Atkinson. The twist was a twist, which was even funnier and crazier.
I don't know if we should spoil it, but let's just say for all the Scooby Doo fans, let's just say this character gives them quite a migraine.
Yep, that's all I'll say there. And then catching up on Downton Abbey, I am now 4 episodes into season 3, and I'm loving it. Every episode so far has been great. I am genuinely invested in every character. It's been There's even been some emotional journeys in this season that I wasn't really expecting. Like there was the threat of the character of Earl losing Downton Abbey because he made a bad investment. Of course, he gets bailed out by Matthew, of course, but that was actually quite an intense storyline. You get the character Ethel, has to make a tough choice on whether to keep her son or not because she's been struggling in prostitution. She made a lot of bad decisions throughout seasons 2 and 3. And then the Bates and Anna drama is very gripping as well because there were some conspiracies on somebody's withholding their letters and what's actually going on with that. And there's some deeper layers going on than initially anticipated. I have been enjoying these 4 episodes. There's some really good drama throughout the series. I did not know Shirley MacLaine guest starred on Downton Abbey. She was in the first 2 episodes of season 3, and that was such a pleasant surprise. She plays Cora's mother, and seeing her on the show was awesome. I like seeing her personality clash with all the other characters, and she's a lot more free spirited. Feel like the traditional English people at Downton Abbey. Her and Maggie Smith in the same scene, and it's comedy gold. Those were some of the most enjoyable aspects in these 4 episodes so far. I'm still enjoying Downton Abbey. I just wanted to share my update. Season 3 is just as good as the other 2 seasons so far, and I'm excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, I honestly forgot that Shirley MacLaine was in that, and I remember it's Downton Abbey is one of those shows where you forget just how many people were involved in it, just for literally a cup of coffee. I won't say who it is, but your jaw's gonna drop when we get to the London special. There's a pretty famous actor who is a member of the extended Crawley family, and I won't say who it is, but he or she is pretty well known and has been well known for quite some time. But that's all I will say.
Oh man, I'm excited to see who that is.
All right, well, if that's all you got, then I have a couple of things. So
Right?
so first up, well, because of I guess we're calling it Hurricane Nicole, I was tempted to get some of my comfort watches in, just knock off some of my yearly watches, and one of them was Rio Bravo. It's one of my, if not my favorite Western of all time, directed by Howard Hawks, starring John Wayne, Ricky Nelson, and Dean Martin. John Wayne plays John T. Chance, a sheriff of this very much like small town. It's being bottled up by this really rich family, the Burdettes. Uh, at the start of the movie, Chance nails his brother, Joe Burdett, the brother of the big boss, Nathan Burdett, for murder and wants to get the marshal, but he knows deep down that his entire police department consists of himself as the sheriff, Dude, played by Dean Martin, who is referred to in Mexico as borrachon, which means drunk, and Stumpy, played by Walter Brennan, who means well but has a limp and is really old. So that's pretty much his entire force. And he has to go up against the Burdettes, who are bringing in hired guns and giving each of them like newly minted $50 gold pieces. And back then, that was like paying them like 10 grand. Like it was a big deal. This is one of the movies that my dad introduced to me, and we just love, and the love is translated over to me. There's so much to love about this movie. The gunfights are a lot of fun. John Wayne is predictably excellent. Dean Martin, he's not like the best actor in the world. He's not going to win any Oscars, but he actually has some pretty good moments as the Borrachon. There's one particular scene which involves him in a liquor bottle, and I won't say anything more. Ricky Nelson is good as Colorado, and it's funny, it's epic, it's got gunfights, but then randomly you got Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson singing "My Rifle, My Pony, and Me," and it's all excellent. It's one of those westerns that I feel like no one talks about anymore, and I think that people should. I'm gonna make it a better than you remember video one of these days.
Yeah, I've actually seen Rio Bravo before. It was one of my gateways to the Western genre. And it's just as awesome as you've already said. I love the pairing of the cast. It's an epic story. You'd think Dean Martin and Ricky Nelson would be out of place in this movie, but they're awesome, and they actually can act alongside John Wayne and be part of the epic ensemble. It's definitely one of the best westerns out there. Probably one of Howard Hawks' best, if not his best film as a director.
I think John Wayne's best film period is The Searchers. I know that's probably a cold take, but The Searchers is top tier John Wayne, that and True Grit, and I would easily put Rio Bravo up there in that conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
And then another one of my comfort watches is The Founder, directed by John Lee Hancock and starring Michael Keaton. And this is based on the true story of Ray Kroc, the guy who founded McDonald's. And McDonald's, we all know what that is. It's pretty much on every street corner nowadays. But I love this movie, and I've seen it so many times I could pretty much quote it from memory, despite the fact that I know exactly what's going to happen. It is a movie that gets better the more I think about it, because when you start off with Ray Kroc, he's basically like a guy who is a salesman, but he always like jumps on trends to try and because he feels deep down inside that he deserves better than what he's got. And then when he stumbles upon McDonald's, he's like, this is it. This is my ticket. And then throughout the movie, it's just hurdle after hurdle, and the McDonald brothers, while they mean well to Ray Kroc, eventually they're just like, they become a headache to him. But then a choice is made to where you're just like, I respect the hustle, but I just hate how you did it. And it's just one of those things to where McDonald's wouldn't be in the place that it is now without this decision, but you feel crappy about it. So it's complicated, but it's a really good movie. Michael Keaton is awesome as Ray Kroc. John Carroll Lynch and Nick Offerman are great as the McDonald brothers. Laura Dern is great in her role as Ray Kroc's wife. BJ Novak is good in his small role. This is just a very underrated biopic, and there's a great montage of the McDonald brothers creating the first McDonald's restaurant at a tennis court. It's one of my favorite scenes of 2016. It's such a very well done montage. And that's another movie I'd love to do a Better Than You Remember video on, that being The Founder.
Yeah, I've actually overlooked this movie. I've heard of it. I know what it's about, but it's one that it fell through the cracks and I never got around to actually watching it.
Well, you should get around to it. I think you would really like it. Well, what have you all been watching lately? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob, let's get into Daredevil. Let's talk about Daredevil Season 2, Episode 6, called Regrets Only. A lethal foe returns with a vengeance. Foggy and Murdoch risk the firm to ensure justice. And Karen sees a different side of the Punisher. The Punisher makes a return. The quality of this show goes through the roof, fair to say.
That's for sure. Last episode was easily the weakest of season 2. Not that it was bad by any means. It just felt like a filler episode to get to this episode. But this episode more than makes up for it. Every scene involving the Punisher had me so invested because I didn't know where the story was going to head. It was going in so many different directions, and it kept throwing me for a loop every time the Punisher was on screen because you don't know what decision he's going to make, what bombshell is going to drop in regard to his character. And I was so riveted. John Bernthal is fantastic as this character, and even I know there's been other iterations, but I haven't seen them honestly, like the 2004 one, or I think there was one in the 80s with Dolph Lundgren. But I already know John Bernthal is my Punisher. He is so committed to this character, and I love it. And even like the side story with Matt Murdock, who teams up with Elektra, and they take on the Yakuza, even though that could have been easily like a disposable side story, I was still invested in that story. One, because the action was really awesome, and two, I'm a sucker for heist narratives. And they go the heist narrative route in this episode, and I enjoyed that as well. But it's not near as compelling as the Punisher stuff. The Punisher stuff is easily the highlight of Daredevil season 2. And I think the more I dive into this show, learning more about the Punisher, it makes me more hyped to check out the Punisher show, which is part of this Netflix Marvel universe as well. So this is another great episode of Daredevil and easily a step up from last week's.
I have not seen this season in a minute, so this is all kind of fresh to me, sort of fresh. I wonder what Reyes's angle in all of this is, because she's being very sus about her activities in this whole thing.
Yeah, I just thought she was just a hard-nosed district attorney going, when you first meet her character. But the more the series dives into her, there's definitely some past history with her and the Punisher. And I definitely want to learn more about her to see what this bad blood is between the two. So it probably has something to do with him and his family. That's what I'm predicting. And I'm sure there's going to be some even crazier twists going forward.
I agree. And also, there's a great moment with Matt Murdock, not Daredevil, Matt Murdock, because we've been talking about how great Foggy Nelson has been, but it feels like just the Matt Murdock, the lawyer side of things, has been constantly slept on this season. But Matt Murdock laid down the law to DA Reyes in this, when he's basically, if he's like, if you're going to take us down, we're taking you with us. I'm like, bro, you did not have to go that hard on her, but I'm so glad you did. And then at the end, with the Punisher being like, yeah, I'll say I'm guilty, but then he's like, yeah, not guilty, I'm going after you, you're gonna burn. I'm like, what is your angle? It's like, it's this whole show is just when you think you know the answers, I change the questions kind of show.
Yeah, like I was saying, it kept going in different directions. I wasn't expecting it was heading, and I think we're almost halfway through season two, and I'm excited to see what the people versus Frank Castle is going to entail because it's going to be another gripping courtroom drama.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at the just the IMDb ratings for the rest of this season, it is looking like nothing but W's. Semper Fidelis is 8.5, and then 8, 9, and 10 are all in the nines. So we are in for a good stretch of television. So what did you all think of season 2, episode 6 of Daredevil? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob, let's get into the main event for the evening. Let's talk about the top 10 highest grossing movies that were released on their respective Thanksgiving weekends. I came up with this because Thanksgiving is just around the corner, and I'm thinking next week I'd like to do movies that we like to watch around Thanksgiving and what other people think are Thanksgiving movies. I think that'd be fun. But for right now, let's get into the 10 highest grossing Thanksgiving movies, or movies released on Thanksgiving weekend. Let's get into it. Starting off with number 10, and this is according to Box Office Mojo, so not making these figures up, but starting at number 10 is 101 Dalmatians, from the one starring Glenn Close, with a total of $33.5 million. I've actually never seen this one, Jacob. I don't know about you.
Oh, the figures are just the opening weekend. Is that what you're looking at?
No, wait, actually, this is total gross. No, wait,
Total gross.
it is the opening weekend, the Thanksgiving weekend totals.
I gotcha.
101
All right,
Dalmatians in total grossed 136 million.
I, I got you. I was confused over the numbers for a second. But yeah, I have seen this version of 101 Dalmatians. It was one of the first live action remakes Disney actually did. And this was, of course, before Disney turned it into the money making trend that's making or breaking their live action output these days. The movie's fine. Glenn Close is easily the best aspect of 101 Dalmatians. She chews the scenery as Cruella de Vil, and it's not a bad remake of 101 Dalmatians. There's some good elements that I do like in it. I like that for the live action version, they use real dogs and they don't have the dogs talk. I think that was a smart move to make it to fit with live action medium. I do think the movie gets too cartoonish in the third act, though, because the film was written by John Hughes, and in the '90s, John Hughes was stuck in that phase where, oh, all my movies, because Home Alone was so successful, every movie has to be like Home Alone, and so you have like Horace and Jasper and Cruella getting caught in booby traps uh, set up by the animal characters, and while that's funny in Home Alone, it is not as funny in 101 Dalmatians, and it comes off as pretty stupid in this movie. So there's a lot that I like in 101 Dalmatians, but it gets a little too much as far as comedy goes in the third act. So it's more, I guess, like but not love category.
Yeah, the only live action Dalmatian movie I've ever seen is Cruella, which is not even is there's not a Dalmatian in sight in that movie. I liked Emma Stone, and the rest I thought was really weird.
Yeah, Cruella was such a different take on the character and 101 Dalmatians in general. Someone that was so skeptical on that movie, I was pleasantly surprised by Cruella. I thought it was one of the better like interpretations of a Disney character, especially on the live action side goes. I was impressed by the direction, the writing, Emma Stone's performance, and I liked that it felt more like a villain origin story than anything else. I like it a lot better than the 101 Dalmatians, even though Glenn Close is easily the best thing about that movie.
All right, well, at number 9, it is Enchanted with a total of 34.4 million. Now, this is actually quite relevant as we're getting Disenchanted coming up very soon. And Jacob, you actually just reviewed Enchanted over on your channel. So this is a very salient film right now.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Enchanted, like I said, I revisited it recently, and it was one that if I was doing the series that so and so movie is better than you remember, Enchanted would easily take the cake because it's one where the more I revisit it, the more and more I like it. It's such a brilliant satire, but it also pays respects to all the best Disney movies.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's weird that Disenchanted is going straight to Disney Plus. I mean, Enchanted made 34 million, so that's nothing to sneeze at all. But I guess at the same time, just taking a rough look at what's coming out this Thanksgiving, we're getting Glass Onion for a limited run. And then just taking a look, we've also got Strange World, so we've got already another Disney movie out, and I'm unfortunately thinking that's going to be kind of slaughtered just due to a lack of marketing. But I mean, that's a whole nother story for a whole nother time. And we're also getting Bones and All, Luca Guadagnino's new film. So I guess it's a bit of a crowded landscape. So Disney Plus might have been the ideal choice. But at the same time, I mean, with 34 million, I mean, it kind of says like, hey, put it into theaters, but I'm not at Disney, so who knows?
Yeah, it kind of shocks me that this was going to Disney Plus. Like you think, like I said, this should have been a theatrical release because of the talent involved and it being a sequel to a great movie. But I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, well, coming in at number 8 is Creed 2 with 35.5 million. And again, with the recent Creed 3 trailer, it's looking like these Creed movies are not going to stop, and I'm all here for it because I actually really liked Creed 2. I liked the direction they went. And people have complained from what I've seen about how much it leans into the Rocky stuff, but they they made Ivan Drago and that whole side of thing. They brought it out of the cartoon side of things. They actually grounded Ivan Drago, and I loved that. I loved the spirit of that. That angle I thought was brilliant. And Michael B. Jordan is, of course, Michael B. Jordan, so he's really great. Sylvester Stallone is awesome in that. I don't know. Maybe it was just I was just in the right mood that day, but I love Creed too.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I'm in the camp that I always enjoyed Rocky 4. I saw it as more of a guilty pleasure than anything else. But the fact that Creed 2 took the goofiest Rocky movie and you can take it seriously, that's got to be greatly commended. And you got to, I think, give Michael B. Jordan and Sylvester Stallone their due in helping make that possible.
Yeah, and Creed 2 took Ivan Drago from I must break you to a very layered and very nuanced character. Like after Rocky 4, the Drago family pretty much lost everything. His wife left him. He had to raise his son. I'm like, bro, you're making me feel for the guy who killed Apollo Creed. Like that takes some talent. So shout out to Stephen Caple Jr. for making Creed 2 actually something worth it. And I'm crossing all my fingers and toes that Creed 3 is just as good. But I'm actually going to be reviewing all the Rocky movies, and Jacob is going to be a part of that, but more on that a little down the road. Well, next up is The Good Dinosaur at 39.1 million. The Good Dinosaur is like the black sheep of the Pixar family. I'm like one of the ones who like I liked it. I thought it was good, but people despise this movie, and I can't put my finger on why. Jacob, am I crazy?
Yeah, I think you're crazy. The Good Dinosaur is a piece of trash. I'm just kidding. I like this
I
movie too.
was I was about to
I
say,
was surprised that I was surprised that the Good Dinosaur actually made the list because from what I thought the film flopped really bad. It must have just had a decent opening weekend, but I actually thought the movie was fine. It's definitely far from like top tier Pixar. I think the reason people don't like it as much because it's not original story compared to the best of Pixar. Like it can't compete with like Toy Story or The Incredibles or Finding Nemo or anything like that. Like it's pretty much like a boy and his dog type story, but kind of a role reversal. But the formula is still there. I like the main characters well enough. It's beautifully animated. I like the Western influences with dinosaurs. I mean, you got Sam Elliott as a T Rex rancher. I mean, how awesome is that? And you got an amazing score, and there's still some emotion in there. I still got into the characters and their journey, even though it's not top tier Pixar. So this movie still did a lot right, even though it's far from top tier Pixar. I still really like this movie.
Yeah, I agree. And really, Pixar, even on their off days, are still better than most. Like Cars 2 is the worst Pixar movie by a country mile, but I would watch that over most of the things Illumination has done, but that's just me. That's another discussion for another time. Well, coming in at number 6 is Tangled at 48.7 million. There are Tangled people and there are Frozen people, and I am a Tangled person. I love Tangled. I think the songs are better. The I Have Seen the Light song just gives me goosebumps every time. I think it's funnier. I think the story's better. I like Frozen. I'm not against Frozen people, and I get why it became the thing it became. I'm just a Tangled person. It's just a preference. But Jacob, what do you think?
I like both. That's all I'll say there. They're both pretty even to me. So I think there's some aspects I like better in both movies, but they're pretty much even Steven in quality. But I do agree that Tangled is a fantastic movie. It pretty much revived my interest in Disney animation as a studio after quite a few duds in the later part of the 2000s. This was like the first like CG animated Disney film that Disney really did a phenomenal job on. I liked Disney's take on the Rapunzel story, making it their own. I love the Rapunzel character and especially her chemistry with Flynn Rider. And of course, you got the Alan Menken songs, which are just superb as always.
Yeah, and a truly creepy villain in the witch Hazel. I mean, my goodness, no one talks about her, and she is absolutely terrifying in this movie.
Mother Gothel, you mean?
Oh, really? That's what you. Oh,
Which,
wow.
which Hazel is like I think that's like a Looney Tunes character. I think.
Oh, yeah. That's. I don't know where my mind was going with that, but anyway, thank you. But Mother Gothel, yeah, she was terrifying in the movie. Well, next up is at number 5 is Coco with 50.8 million. And I remember being in the theater. I remember when this actually, I was actually working in my local theater when this came out, and I got off at not the closing shift. So it was about 7-ish, 8-ish. And so I was able to see it at like the 9 o'clock showing Thursday night or Tuesday night before it opened Thanksgiving weekend. Frozen, Olaf's Frozen Adventure pretty much just nearly left me dead. I was just sitting there like, why is this here? Why can't the movie start now? I thought that short was just horrible. But Coco, I thought was really good. It's such a colorful movie. It really is. I think this is definitely Pixar's most colorful movie, or one of them at the very least. I love that story. I love the land of the dead. I love the land of the living. There's so much to love about Coco.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed Coco as well. I even like the Olaf short. Sue me if you must. I thought the short was perfectly fine, but it works better as its own short than being in front of Coco. That's all I'll say there. But Coco is a fantastic movie. It's one of Pixar's best films in the last several years. The colorful animation, the soundtrack, the emotional storytelling. Yeah, there's the predictable villain twist, but the villain was still handled very well, and I was still another shocked by some of the decisions that led to what happened to this family at the same time. So there's still some great character layers, and I enjoyed the messages on family and the cultural aspect. I thought was done amazingly well. It's definitely top tier pick so far.
Yeah, without a doubt. So coming in at number 4 is Ralph Breaks the Internet at 56.2 million. I personally enjoyed the first Wreck-It Ralph more than this one, but I'm not going to discount this one. I thought that it was a fine sequel. I don't know about you, Jacob.
So I have a hot take. Not only do I like Ralph Breaks the Internet, but I enjoy it over the first one.
Oh, do tell.
Well, I got into the humor more in Ralph Breaks the Internet. I got into the internet humor a lot more than some of the humor in the first movie. And I think there was more of an emotional bond between Ralph and Vanellope in the sequel. It actually it took the movie in this emotional place I didn't expect to go in the third act. That it was pretty touching to watch, seeing where that wrapped the story up. I enjoyed. And then, of course, the internet humor I thought was good. I like the Disney princess scene. I thought was great. I think I still really like the first movie. The first movie was very imaginative in its approach to video game characters interacting with one another, and I like Ralph as a character. But I like Ralph Breaks the Internet more. I know it's a hot take, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I thought the first one had a stronger story and a better message overall, but I can definitely see where you're coming from, and I did appreciate some of the internet humor as well. But that's another story for another time. Well, next up at number 3 is Moana at 56.6 million. And I actually remember watching this because when I was working in my local theater, new movies would come in the Tuesday before they were supposed to come out on Thursday. They would be downloaded into the server and then they'd be uploaded and ready to go. Well, informally, after the theater closed, the managers were like, all right, we're going to be showing Moana to just all of you, the employees. So just get done about 11:30ish and we'll show it in the RPX. And so we all like cleaned like our lives depended on it. And we did. And by 11:45, we all took the leftover popcorn and we all went in and we watched Moana and like the pitch black, just like the 6 or 7 of us of the closing crew. It was a phenomenal experience. And really, I know everyone loves Moana, but I still think it is underrated in certain respects. And people have said that The Rock can't sing. I disagree. I think he's got a great voice. And I mean Lin-Manuel Miranda does lend a helping hand in that regard, and I do appreciate that. But The Rock more than carries his load, and I like Maui's story. I like Moana's story. The movie looks absolutely gorgeous. The I can't remember the name of the lava monster, but it's the god. I can't remember the name of it right now, but you know who I'm talking about, right, Jacob?
Yeah, I've seen Moana quite a few times.
So yeah, it's a beautiful looking movie. It's got a great message. It's funny at times. Alan Tudyk as that little chicken just got to me. So yeah, like it was in a string of when Disney was doing just beautiful like 3D animated movies. Like from Tangled up to a certain point, they just could not be beat.
Yeah, sadly, I haven't seen Moana that much. Personal story: the first time I saw Moana, it came out at a pretty rough time for me. Like the year the movie came out, my grandma died, and so I felt deep resonance to the Moana character because her grandma died in the same movie, and so that was a bit awkward to watching that in theaters. But it is a great movie. I love Moana as a character. I especially love Maui. He's like the most charismatic character in Disney history, on par with Robin Williams as the genie. So you got to give The Rock so much credit for having a character that has so much personality, and You're Welcome absolutely slaps as a song. There's really good action sequences in the film. Even like the Mad Max parody scene they snuck in with like the Kakamora tribe or whatever. It's funny, but it's just as awesome as the Mad Max Fury Road. I do like this movie, but I've only seen it like twice. but I still
Well,
think
I'm
it's good.
well, I am sorry that it came out around the time your grandpa died. I mean, that was
But
just rotten timing.
grandma,
Oh, your grandma.
yeah, it's my grandma.
I can't hear tonight. I, well, I do.
You're good.
I apologize for the rotten timing, but that was must have been oddly relevant. But yeah, the Moana is really good stuff. And then coming in at number 2 is my personal favorite Pixar movie of all time, Toy Story 2, at 57.3 million. And I have an entire video on my channel talking about Toy Story 2 and why I think it's the best thing Pixar has ever done. And I will maintain that hill and I will die on that hill. But I think it's the best Toy Story movie, it's the best Pixar movie, and I just cannot say enough good things about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a good movie. Considering it came out at a time when animated sequels were looked down upon, because like a lot of Disney's direct-to-video sequels were made during that time, and a lot of people hated them. To me, it's impressive that Toy Story 2, it was a sequel that had the same quality as the first movie, and to some people like you, even better than the first movie. It still had a good story that continued where the characters left off, and they grow and mature along the way. There's some very impressive sequences. The animation continued to improve, and it still carried the themes that made the franchise such a great film and the great franchise in the first place. I feel like this movie definitely laid the groundwork for where Toy Story 3 ended up, and so you got to give credit for that, especially.
If y'all at home do not cry at the song When She Loved Me by Sarah McLachlan, you have no soul. That song
Yeah,
destroys me every time. Yeah, and really it has one of the best casts of a Pixar movie. You got Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, of course. But then you got Frasier, what's his name? Kelsey Grammer
that's the grammar. Yeah.
as Stinky Pete. You got Joan Cusack as Jessie. Like that whole montage of the toy shop owner, like cleaning up Andy and painting up his boots and all that is just fantastic. And it really sets forward the themes that carry on from 2 through 4. And just that Andy will eventually grow up and he will leave his toys behind. So what does Woody do? Does he stay and cherish Andy as long as possible? Or does he go to Japan and be cherished forever by strangers? So it's a fork in the road, and the movie does a great job of not portraying it as a complete cut and dry situation. It's complicated. There's layers to it and there's nuance. And I think it was handled fantastically. It came out in 1999, a pretty big year for movies. And in Thanksgiving 99, I mean, and considering just how much it cleaned up, I mean, it's totally commended. Nothing but a win for Pixar.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And is it just me, or do I miss the days when Pixar had blooper reels at the end of their movies? Toy Story 2 had some of the best ones, and you brought up Kelsey Grammer as Stinky Pete. The one where he actually farts is probably one of my favorite farts in any movie. Oh, I guess that's why they call me Stinky Pete.
You're not alone. I do miss when they do that. That was a very nice touch that they did and never did again, unfortunately. And well, to close things off, the highest grossing Thanksgiving opening weekend of all time belongs to Frozen at 67.3 million. And that's just a small slice of their grand total, which was $400 million at the box office. I mean, Frozen, we've already touched on it. It's probably one of the most important movies that Disney has ever done, just like on the whole. So I don't think I can really add more than that. But I actually unironically really enjoy Frozen. I think it's a good story. Adina Menzel is awesome, though that Let It Go song was just on forever, and I just hated it that it was around forever, and I'm just glad when it went away for a while. But I thought it was a very good movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed Frozen as well. It's continued on the continued revival of Disney animation. I was blown away with this movie when I saw it in theaters, and yeah, the film got overexposed. Let It Go got overplayed, but I still never got tired of watching the film. I was still invested in the story. I still think Let It Go is a great song. And most importantly, I enjoyed the sister relationship with Anna and Elsa. There was some incredible storytelling. I loved the characters. It took a couple subversions compared to classic Disney films, but it did it in such a clever way that it led to a new generation of Disney stories. And I really respect Frozen for that. It didn't go cynical about it. It didn't go. It didn't feel like it insulted any past Disney films, but it was just trying to tell a new story for a new generation, and I love the movie for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what was your all's favorite movie of that 10 that we just listed? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. And that's another episode in the books. Thank you all so much for watching. Jacob, it is a privilege as always. Tell the people where they can find you.
They can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Facebook, and you can also subscribe to my two YouTube channels. My second channel is Storytime with Jacob. That's where I do book reviews and read-alongs, but that channel is actually going to go on hiatus this week when I upload my final read-along video for Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire with my upcoming Christmas series and my big life change coming up. It's going to be on hiatus for a while I'm trying to juggle a new schedule in there. So hopefully you'll all understand on that. But my main channel where I'll be on more often is where I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos, all that fun stuff. Got an exciting Christmas series coming on the channel real soon, 31 Days of Christmas, where I'll be reviewing a bunch of Christmas stuff from Thanksgiving Day all the way up to Christmas Day. Ryan Cam's going to be a special guest on this Christmas series. We'll be covering the Christmas Chronicles as part of that series. But as far as this week on my channel, Ryan will join me Thursday night at 9 p.m. We'll be covering Draft Day, the final film of my Ivan Reitman director project. Speaking of Ivan Reitman, another video dropping on my channel is my review of his second to last film, the comedy No Strings Attached. I also got reviews coming for forgot what I had planned this week. Hold on. Little brain fart here. Oh yeah, I also got my review of Philadelphia coming to the channel this week for my Tom Hanks series. So that's some exciting stuff coming up. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content.
Yeah, definitely go subscribe to Jacob on both of his channels. And I am looking forward to talking about Draft Day this coming Thursday because I think it is a criminally underrated sports movie. And it's one of Chadwick Boseman's best performances, especially that ending. But I'm looking forward to hearing what Jacob has to say about it. And as far as this channel goes, earlier this past Sunday, I dropped my I Finally Watched video for Eyes Wide Shut, and it was certainly an experience. This past Monday, I had my spoiler-filled video talking about Black Panther Wakanda Forever with Cody from the Brock Ops side. That was a lot of fun to do. And then this coming weekend, I plan on reviewing A Christmas Story Christmas, the sequel to A Christmas Story. God, please be good, because I haven't had a good Christmas story in a while. After A Christmas Story 2 was just complete garbage. And then I also plan on reviewing The Menu starring Ralph Fiennes. So a lot of content coming. And then this coming Sunday will be my Better Than You Remember video for The Iron Giant, which is a movie that has gotten a lot of respect nowadays. So if you have not checked me out, please do. And also check out Jacob. But that is all for us. Thank you so much for watching. That's Jacob Martin. My name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. You take care.